After you've sliced an image into multiple slices, you'll optimize and save out individual slices as JPEGs, GIFs, or PNG files. You can then bring those image files into a website building program like Dreamweaver to include them on the final pages that are built there. Here I have a web page comp that I've finished slicing, but before I optimize the slices, I want to give meaningful names to the user slices. That's an important step because the user slices will generate the JPEGs, GIFs, or PNGs that I can take into a site building program for potential inclusion in a final version of the page created there. Now I don't have to bother naming the auto slices because those parts of a final page can be produced without image files in the source code generated by a website building program. I'll get the Slice Select tool from the toolbox to show you how I would name one of my user slices. I'm going to click on the slice around the Explore California logo, and then I'll go up to the Slice Select tool options bar and click this icon, and that opens Slice Options. Notice that the name currently is Slices 402, which is taken from the file name and from the slice number. When I save out this image and generate a GIF from this particular slice, the name of that GIF will be slices402.gif. If I bring that GIF with that name into a site building program like Dreamweaver, the name won't tell me anything about the content of the file. So I want to change the name here to something more meaningful. I'll call this logo. And now the name of the image generated from this slice will be logo.gif, which is a lot more useful. I'm going to skip the other options in the Slice Options dialog box because they only come into play if I ask Photoshop to generate HTML code along with the images created from my slices. And as I've explained, it's a better idea to just generate images and bring them into Dreamweaver for coding with CSS than to generate HTML from Photoshop. So I'll skip the rest of this and I'll click OK. Normally I'd go through selecting each user slice and then giving it a meaningful name, but I've actually already done that with this file. So I'm ready to go on to the next step, which is to optimize the sliced file. I'll go up to the File menu, and I'll choose Save for Web and Devices. Here in the Save for Web and Devices window, I'm going to work in the Optimize tab so that I can see the largest possible area of the file. The task here is to optimize each of the slices with the best settings for the content of that slice. There are lots of slices, over 40 slices. And I don't want to have to optimize each one separately. So I'm going to show you a few ways that you can economize and save time as you optimize multiple slices. I'll look for areas that might optimize with the same settings. A good example is the buttons up here. I'm going to select all 5 of these buttons at once by getting the Slice Select tool from the Save for Web and Devices window, which looks very similar to the Slice Select tool out in Photoshop proper. And I'll click on the first of the button slices to select it, and then I'll hold the Shift key and click in the other button slices to select those too. Down at the bottom of the screen, I can see that all 5 of these button slices together will generate images that are over 5 kilobytes with the current optimization settings. I'd like to try to get that number down lower. So I'll go to the Colors field, and I'll reduce the number of colors. I'll try 16, 8, and as I do this, I'm keeping my eye on the buttons to make sure they still look good, and on the file size to see it getting lower and lower. 8 colors works. Let's see how 4 looks. At 4 colors, I'm starting to see some jaggedy edges around the buttons. So I'll go back to 8 colors, and I'll try to get the file size down even more by turning off Dither. I'm happy with that look, and the file size of all 5 buttons together is now much lower, so I'm satisfied with that. Now I'll look for some other slices whose content is similar, like these 3 photographs. I'll click on one of those, hold the Shift key, and click on the other 2. The file size is quite high, but I think that's because the optimization settings are set to GIF. If I change that to JPEG, the file size is cut in half, and I think the images look pretty good with a medium quality of 30, so I'll leave it at that. Now I'll take a look at the order buttons down here. I'm going to turn off the slices for just a moment by clicking this icon to show you that the order buttons are not just flat art. Instead, they have a bevel on them, and so it's possible that they might optimize better as JPEG than as GIF. This is the kind of hybrid image that you just have to test out. So I'll click that icon again to turn the slices back on, and when I do so, you can see that the non-selected slices have this kind of a ghosting over them, but as I select slices, holding down the Shift key to select multiple buttons, I can see them more clearly. If I optimize these as GIF, I can take them down lower, but as soon as I get to 8 colors, I lose the text on the buttons. So I'd have to have the buttons at 16. Let's see if I can turn off dither. Yes, they look fine without dither too. And now I've got the file size down very low. Let's see the size as JPEGs. It's just about the same, but I don't think the buttons look as good with this quality JPEG as they do as GIF with 16 colors. So there are no magic numbers here. I simply want you to understand the process of optimizing different kinds of images in this sliced file. I have a few more slices to optimize. One is this banner, which is currently set to GIF with 32 colors. Notice the file size, 3.771K. Let's see how this looks as Ping 8. It still looks good, and the file size is smaller. So I'm going to go with Ping 8 there. And I'll select the logo slice, check the size as a GIF with 32 colors, and I'll try that as a Ping 8 as well. And there is a significant file saving, and I think the image looks just as good, so I'll go with Ping 8. So I've now optimized all of the user slices. There are a number of auto slices too. If I click on one of the auto slices, notice that it has an infinity symbol on it. That means that all of these auto slices, which all have the infinity symbol, are linked together for purposes of optimizing. So whatever optimization settings I choose for this slice will apply to all. Because these are flat art, I'll leave them set to GIF, and I'll reduce the number of colors as low as I can go. 2 obviously isn't enough because I lost that text altogether on the selected slice. At 4 colors, the text looks jaggedy, so I'll try 8 colors. And that looks fine. But actually, I'm not very concerned about these auto slices, because when the final page is built in Dreamweaver or another site building program, the areas covered by these outer slices probably won't use graphics at all, but will rely on the source code developed in those programs. Now that everything is optimized, it's time to save. I'll click the Save button at the bottom of the Save for Web and Devices window. And in the Save Optimized As dialog box, I want to be sure to go down and set the Slices field to All Slices. Or, if I don't want any of the auto slices to be saved, I could choose All User Slices, but I want you to see all of the different slices that are generated by this file. I'm also going to leave Format set to Images Only. I could have Photoshop also generate HTML code that would reassemble all of these slices. But as I've said a number of times, I probably would never use the HTML code that comes out of Photoshop. Rather, I would build the page from scratch in a program like Dreamweaver, using just the images, putting them in appropriate places on the page that I build there. So I'll leave the format set to Images Only and click Save. Out on my desktop, there's an Images folder generated by Photoshop. If I look inside the Images folder, I can see lots of different pings and GIFs, and even a couple of JPEGs. Notice that some of the files have meaningful names, and others don't. The files with the names are the ones that I named. The other files that I didn't bother naming are the auto slices, and these are the files that I probably wouldn't use in my final pages. Let me open a couple of these named files so that you can see them. Here's one of my buttons that's saved as a GIF, and here's one of the photographs. So as you can see, these are each individual image files generated by a slice in that big page comp. And the good news is that I now have all the image assets that I need to build this page in a program like Dreamweaver, and all of those assets were generated at once by Photoshop from a single sliced page layout.